Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jess.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I feel like it's been a long time coming. We've known each other for a couple of years, been in masterminds together for the last 3 years. And well, I guess our podcast is fairly new and that's why you haven't been on it. But I'm like, how have we not done this already?
Well, I am very honored to be here. And I know that you've been on mine, but mine is
Mhm.
in a hiatus right now. So I'm just glad I can jump on the mic again.
Yeah. How do you feel putting your podcast on hiatus? Was there any sort of shoulds that came up for you, or was there any sort of external pressure? We're just diving in.
So not really. So this will be, I'm sure, a big part of the conversation. I had a baby, my first baby a year ago, and getting back into work after maternity leave and just realizing that I had very little time and energy, especially the first like 6 to 8 months postpartum. There was a fair bit of just mental recalibration, figuring out how to do the work I needed to do with my new mom brain, which is like, if you didn't have ADD before having a child, you now do. Congratulations. And so I looked at the podcast as something that hadn't really been necessarily the biggest obvious audience builder for a while. We had been using it almost more as a way to help our clients practice their own publicity strategy.
Interesting.
We didn't have like a zero audience, but it definitely was not something that I saw as like a massive factor in our business growth. And I definitely plan to bring it back. I really actually love podcasting. But I just had to get really ruthless about how I was spending my time and making sure that everything I was doing was clearly leading to growth in the business. So that's why I decided to take a break from the podcast. I will bring it back and I'm going to rebrand it as well. But I need to make sure I'm doing the right things in the right order so that any energy I'm putting into that is actually helping the business grow.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to a year ago because your little girl's turning a year old, which is insane. I don't understand. Like that was a quick year for me. So
We just celebrated her birthday like a couple weeks ago. So
insane.
it's a
It's
big
crazy.
milestone.
Huge milestone. She's so cute. But I know being in the mastermind with you and being friends with you and stuff, I saw a lot of the, I guess, reservations or just uncertainties and I'm sure common thoughts. I know I'm not a mom yet, but I've had those thoughts of like, how am I going to do it all? How is it even possible to do both at the same time, scaling a business and having a baby, the first one. And so I'd love to hear if you even could remember rewinding to like a year and a half ago before she was born. What did you sort of get right? What did you sort of get wrong in terms of your expectations of what you thought would be hard or what you thought would be easy? And then it was a rude awakening.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely easily bring myself back because that was like a full year of anxiety between thinking, okay, it's time to start doing this. And then when it was happening and the train had left the station, it's like, all right, here we go. As far as what I got wrong, I mean, maybe this sounds funny, but I think I was like so afraid of what the like just problems were going to be. And I think if and when we do it again, because we do hope to have more, I just want to enjoy it more and not
Yeah.
be so like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I can't, before you have a child, if anyone's listening that is a parent, it's like you literally can't compare it to anything. So I don't blame myself for not knowing how much I would enjoy it because I honestly don't really care for other people's children. Like I don't hate children or anything. I'm just kind of like whatever. You know how there's a lot of women that are like obsessed with babies. That just was never me. So the whole time during the pregnancy, I was like just so worried that I wasn't going to enjoy it, that my life was going to be over, that everything that I wanted to do was going to have to be put on hold. And even though there's a lot of truth to the fact that there were a lot of huge changes that happened, what I wasn't anticipating was how much I was going to adore my child. And so if somebody is out there listening and they're afraid to have children, the best advice I could give is to just know that it's really easy to imagine all the hard stuff because we've done a lot of really hard things, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you've done hard stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
we have that experience to pull from to say, this is going to be a ton of work. It's a huge responsibility. My whole life is going to change. But we don't have a lot of experience to pull from when imagining the positives. And so it's really easy to just get caught up in imagining how hard everything's going to be. And yes, things have been hard. I'm not going to lie and say that stuff has been easy. But I just didn't really understand how powerful the love piece was going to be in affecting that. And so it's one of these, like, I didn't know I was going to love being a mom so much, but now that I am, I just, like, my baby is amazing. She's so cool. She's just like the most fun little, like, spunky personality that, you know, I wasn't even expecting as far as a child is concerned. And so that was something that was definitely not expected. And then as far as like what I got right, I would say a lot of the stuff I got right was, it's kind of a paradox in the situation. It was because I was so afraid that everything was going to be way harder. I preemptively started making my business model simpler. So one of the big things I did when I was pregnant was I closed down a multi six-figure mastermind that I was running, which some people would be like, oh my gosh, you're shutting down your highest ticket offer with your top clients. Why would you do that? And for me, the funny thing is that program was the most energetically demanding for a lot of reasons, and actually the least profitable of any program that I was running. So it's this kind of weird conundrum where it's like, yeah, I love doing it, but it's so much work. And if I just took even half that work and applied it to my less energetically demanding programs, I'd probably be making the same, if not more, money from those programs. So I ended up closing that down. I really simplified my offers. I stopped taking almost any one-on-one clients, which was also a big part of my revenue previously. And so simplifying the business, cutting down how many offers I was selling, and really focusing on creating more scalability within the offers that were working well, because I knew my time was going to be limited. Like, even if I don't have any experience with a baby, that's a pretty common thread as far as things.
Good hypothesis.
Yes. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's some celebrities out there that don't see their time massively change, but that wasn't my situation. So just being able to really simplify the business so that I could continue to run it in limited capacity, that was something that I feel like I did well. You know, there's always things in hindsight I could have done better, but being able to do that, and then also being able to bank up some finances before my maternity leave, so that way I could really take that time off and not worry that, you know, I have to take a pay cut. Like, I just kept paying myself my normal salary throughout my, I think it was like 10 weeks of maternity leave. So that was something that worked really well for the preparation process. So
were you able to actually go on maternity leave, or were you like secretly checking on things?
No, I was posting on social media because I just wanted everyone to see how cute my baby was. Like, look at how amazing she is. But I literally took Slack off my phone.
Incredible.
So my integrator at the time was pretty much just like running the show, making sure everything was functioning. Now, we didn't grow the business while I was on maternity leave. We didn't have like a ton of sales coming in. That's my next goal for our next maternity leave, is to have a business that's making sales even while I'm off. But I was able to really disconnect for a solid, I would say, 6 weeks of not doing anything. And then as I started to come back on, it was very touch and go, because just the mental and physical recovery of birth and newborn phase is like, I wasn't really capable of doing a whole lot of high level stuff anyway. So, so it's kind of just like peeking in here and there after the first like 6 weeks. But we went into that with I guess I told my integrator, we're going to practice and pretend like I'm in a coma and you can't contact me. And then we'll use that to then inform how we're running the maternity leave, because I'm not going to like tell her, don't contact me if there's an emergency, but I wanted her to feel ready to do it without me.
Yeah. And empowered to make decisions and all of that, which is part of leadership that people don't really talk about. Right. Was it something where like you got pregnant and immediately started sort of recalibrating how you were going to run the business? Like, you found out you were pregnant and the conversation started of how are we going to simplify, or was that something that came, you know, after the first couple of months? And also, second question, was that something that you had already wanted to do? Because I know I've been sitting in a season for quite some time of really wanting to simplify the business, which is what we've been doing for the last 3 years as we have scaled the team and systems, automations, processes, coaches. It's sort of, I've had this thought, this story, this dream, I guess, in my head, there's an age I'm approaching, right, where I'll be 40 this coming year. And I'm like, I can't imagine being 40 and still doing some of the same things that I have been doing in the business. And so I've had this tone underneath of like, things are going to be changing, which we're actively doing right now. So I'm curious, were you sort of in that season already, or was it like, boom, got pregnant, let's start making changes now?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think theoretically, I'm always from a conceptual perspective, knowing that simplification is a better way to go.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is your issue too, but I would say like one of my toxic entrepreneur traits is just always making new things instead of just making the old thing work better or
Yep.
just sell more of it. And it's still a bad habit of mine. I love creating things. I'm a manifester for human design. So like, I just like start stuff, and that's something that I've had to really kind of like rein in with my business, at least at this point, because at some point I would love for that behavior to grow the business. But right now that behavior kind of does not help with growing and making a simplified business model. I think for me, a lot of it was kind of like survival. My first, I think, 18 weeks of pregnancy, I was so miserable. I was nauseous all the time. I was exhausted.
I remember I was with you right
Oh my
when you
gosh.
told me like really early on, and you were like, I'm so sick today. Can you just like hang around longer at my mastermind? I'm like, sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was right. So, side note, when I had literally found out like a week before I ran my in-person mastermind retreat in Scottsdale, and I had asked you to come be a guest expert I think before I knew I was pregnant.
Yeah.
But the day you showed up was the day everything started as far as like me being sick was concerned. And I was just like, okay, my people are going to get value in some way, shape, or form. Jess is here. I know she's got a lot she could share, so I'm just going to hand it over to her. So that was, it was kind of an interesting experience because usually at those events, I'm very much like, I got to provide value. I got to like teach, I got to coach, and I got to do all this stuff. And that experience was like, oh my God, I literally don't even know if I can. And that the first few months of pregnancy were a lot like that, where it was just like, I have to just do the bare minimum because I actually don't have anything else in me. Second trimester, physically, I was feeling better, but that particular time of my life, my husband had to get a pretty serious spinal cord surgery. So even though I was feeling better from a pregnancy perspective, I had to deal with some pretty scary like medical stuff with him and just like take care of him. And like he couldn't even dress himself for a couple of weeks after the surgery. So that was pretty much like, all right, another thing that is making my life a little harder now than it normally would be. And then pretty much there was only a few months after that where I was still pregnant. The fatigue came back. Luckily, the nausea never came back, but there's also kind of the nesting energy you get where you're like, you don't really want to do anything that isn't baby related. So, so like basically it was 9 months of just challenge after challenge that was kind of forcing me to slow down. Because I'm kind of I'm a kind of person that tends to power through stuff and like just get it done, which in earlier years of my entrepreneurial journey, that was a really
Yeah.
beneficial
Probably served you
habit.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so at this stage, especially with the life changes and everything, it was like that behavior was no longer possible. And I had to kind of figure out, okay, what are other ways I can keep serving my clients, keep selling, keep growing the business, but not make it based on me just like being good at stuff, right? Or
Yeah.
having a lot of energy. And then postpartum, there have been so many changes. I think I'm finally starting to feel a little bit more like mentally with it, but I still know that my brain is different now than it used to be. So there's a lot of stuff I still have to kind of like do differently, if that makes sense. So all of that said, with the original question you asked, I don't, I think sometimes it's like, changes have to happen, but you don't do them until you basically have no other choice. And I hate waiting for that, but it's just like a bad habit of mine to be like, hey, this is working the way it is now, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And then it's not until basically it's not an option anymore, that finally forces me to do it differently. So that was my experience. And then the postpartum and last year of motherhood, it's like I'm still experimenting to see what is going to work best for me and for this new whole life that we have. But I think just being able to adapt and know that I don't have to rely on hard work and my energy
Yeah.
input for the business to still grow and function.
Yeah. I would love to reflect something back to you. What I've noticed over this last year, and of course, I'm not in your home with you and I'm not in your business with you, and I have no idea. I mean, ultimately, I see you on calls and we see each other for a couple events in person and talk here and there, but it seems on the outside as though you have just stepped into a different version of yourself, which I would just love to publicly edify you for. Not that you were ever stressed out and chaotic or neurotic or high strung or anything like that, but the level at which you are now seemingly just more grounded and like secure in yourself and confident in yourself, in your business, in the way that you mother, just your whole energy has just totally shifted. And there was nothing bad or wrong with your energy before, but it is like a whole new Laura has appeared. And when you walk into the room, you can just feel it. And it's incredible to witness. And I'm getting teary-eyed actually telling you, because you're like a completely different version of yourself and you were already incredible. So I just want you to know that. And I see it and I feel it. And I think everybody does. And so with that, I really am crying.
Oh,
I would love to
I
know
like
if,
have chills. I receive this so much.
yeah, I hope you do. And I mean it. And there was nothing wrong before. It just is like, you're just you're like playing a different game now. And it's very cool to see. And it's really, really sweet to witness, especially after you said, like you said, you weren't 100% sure about motherhood. You weren't like, yay, babies, like all the time. And so to see where you are today and to watch the whole thing unfold over the last year, it's just been really incredible to watch. It's been a gift for me to watch. So I appreciate that in you. What I would love to know when I stop crying is, has that actually shifted inside of you? Like, are you recognizing that maybe things don't care, maybe you don't care as much in the business when something goes wrong, or there's like a client that's complaining? Like, does it not affect you the same way that it once did? Because that's how it feels to me on the outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a big change. I think when you met me, there was a lot of me trying to like manage other people's experiences in a lot of ways. And, when you have a few clients, it's not hard to do because it's like, oh, I just have a few people I need to handle. And especially if you're doing one-on-one stuff, it's like, I'm kind of good at showing up as the person that individual needs me to be in that moment. And so handling the one-on-one stuff is a lot easier. When you and I met, I was really getting more into the bigger container support type of programs. And then, the mastermind I was running, very high ticket, like people having high expectations of what, they're going to get if they're spending $15,000 to $20,000 for a coaching program. So I think the pre-mom phase of my life, I just put a lot of stock in expectation management, image management, not in the sense that I like want people to think I'm like some celebrity or something, but like, I just want to do a good job, right? Like I want people to walk away from investments with me as their coach being like, wow, that was even better than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that that's changed, but I think postpartum, I don't know if it's like an energetic thing or just like I just can't actually manage, kind of like realizing, oh, like I can't actually control the way people respond. I just got to this place where it's like, I can be okay with doing the best job that I possibly can. And also knowing that like, it's never going to be perfect and there's going to be people that aren't happy with it. And I think some of it is like caring less. Like, I feel like the business is much less an integral part of my identity now. And it's more like, I hate to say it as if it's just a means to an end, but it kind of feels that way now, right? Like I love helping people and I really want to see all of my clients be successful, but it doesn't feel so much like wrapped up in like who I am and what I'm here for. Now, of course, I got to be careful. That's not how like motherhood then starts to become the new thing. But I do think like having the baby and seeing that part of my life being so important to me now, it just gave me a different perspective on the business and how the business is either intertwined or possibly like more detached from me as a person. So I don't know if I don't have like a 5-step process or something as far as like doing that is concerned, but I think
You probably do. It's probably in there somewhere.
I could come up with one. I don't know if I can do it on the spot, but maybe I'll have a framework on that in a few weeks. But I was going to say that I don't know. It's like you just get to this place where you simultaneously like really care about people. And then you also are like, you're an adult. You're not my responsibility.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like having the baby is like, she's my responsibility. She's not an adult. She needs me. She needs me to be, mentally and emotionally stable. She needs me to be present. Like we have help. So I don't see her all day, every day. But when I am with her, I really do my best to stay off my phone and really be with her. So now that I have a child that is actually dependent on me and
Right.
needs me to make good choices and needs me to show up for my at my best as much as I possibly can, knowing that it's, I'm not going to put that pressure on myself to be perfect. I just feel like I now look at other people as like, you're responsible for your own life and I'm not responsible for you. I'm responsible for this child. So,
yeah,
it probably took me having a kid to actually cut the cord on that. But,
sure.
but I do think before having the baby, I took on a lot of responsibility for not only my clients' results, but even their happiness. And that was something that absolutely it was not compatible with motherhood.
I think it's super common for us to do that, whether it's, wanting to feel valued, validated, important, for the business to feel quote unquote real, all of these different things. And, people say my business is my baby and I don't have a baby. And for years I've been saying my business is not my baby. I don't want it to be my baby because that means it's dependent on me. Right. And I don't want my business to be dependent on me. And I don't want it to be the only thing that I care about. Like you said, you're like, it's kind of a means to an end. I mean, it is, it's a job. And I think sometimes people forget that, where it's like, we can work through the mindset of unapologetically wanting to make a lot of money, right? That's great. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business, that is how you're paying your bills. And so your business should make money. You do want to be profitable. And that's not even, you need to be unapologetic about it. That just is, that's the fact. That's the point of the business. It's one, yes, it's supposed to help people and solve problems, but two, it's instead of you going and having a 9-to-5 job where you have a boss or whatever that would be. So like, yeah, it is a means to an end. And when you can sort of detach yourself from, and I would love for the listeners right now to like, just figure out how this can hit for you, because not everybody on here is a parent. Not everybody wants to be a parent. But what I do know is that majority of our listeners are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, some iteration of that. And what I know with so many of our clients is we get really caught up in what people think and the numbers in the business. And if it's not continuously growing month after month or year after year, and we sort of wrap our identity up into it, like you were saying before. And it's like, maybe it shouldn't have to take having a baby or like a drastic life change. We just had a client who unexpectedly lost a parent. Like it shouldn't, unfortunately, be something so big that shakes you. But for most of us, it does take the snow globe being shaken for us to wake up and be like, wait a minute, hold on. Things are actually different. Maybe there's more important things, or I want to run my business differently. So the baby's one thing, right? Whether or not that was a choice, you don't have to get into that, whether it was like a planned thing, but there are things that happen in your business that maybe aren't planned. And I know that you recently went through something in the business that you probably weren't expecting. And it sort of shook the snow globe again, leaving you in a position where you lost your integrator. And so for anyone listening who isn't familiar, an integrator is essentially the COO. It's the operations, it's the person who's helping run the company, where Lauren in our company is the integrator or COO. Her job is to actually drive the ship. So I'm just like, hey, I want to go that way. Like that way looks fun. Look at that island over there. Let's go over there. And then she's figuring out with the entire ship crew, whatever what are they called? Shipmates? I don't know. The whole crew. She's figuring out like who needs to steer, who's going to move I don't know anything about a boat. Who's going to move the
Maybe
sail?
not the best metaphor, right?
Right. So she's figuring it out and she's making it happen. So your integrator unexpectedly quit, left, ended, leaving you sort of with all of these tasks and things to do that maybe you hadn't been doing for a long time, or you weren't expecting to take back on. How have you been navigating that? How has the business model changed since then, if it has? And sort of just how are you dealing with like, oh, it's a no crap moment, really?
Yeah. And the weird part about it is that my integrator didn't want to leave. So she's given me permission to share like whatever details about the situation.
And we
Essentially
love
what
her.
happened.
We love her.
What?
We love her.
Oh, I know. Everyone loves her.
We love her. She's great.
Yeah. And so she was like one of the star students of the leadership program that we sent our integrators through last year. And our personality expert, Alex Palos, told me, oh my gosh, she's like the perfect personality for an integrator. So she was like my unicorn integrator. She had been a client. We met through James Wedmore's BBD program. So she already had that baseline understanding. She became a client and then decided we kind of like just brought her into a support role. And then she just snowballed from there to become the integrator. And then last year sent her through the 1-year training program to, the idea was this year was going to be like stepping into that role. And unfortunately, I think it was around November of last year that her youngest daughter developed a really serious eating disorder and basically like completely shattered my integrator's personal life as far as like how she needed to be spending her time, her energy. As time went on before she ended up leaving, I was watching her just like the light going out as far as like how she was showing up, and she was still trying so hard, but like there's a big difference when somebody's excited and like self-motivated to show up and do work. And then, right before she left, it was like, I think she was just in survival mode.
Yeah.
And then we talked about it and we decided that she would take a month off just to like recalibrate and just figure out what was going to happen from then on. And then in May, when we met up again to talk about what was going to happen with her position, we basically established that like she couldn't work for me at this point. The weird thing is, I think a lot of times when people lose key team members, it's kind of like a final, you're gone, and that's never, you're not coming back either. They were fired, right. They quit, something happened where it's like, that's not part of our business anymore, that person. So I'm kind of in this weird position where if she wanted to come back, she knows this, that I would hire her back in a heartbeat for whatever position I had available. And I also can't, like mentally, I just can't have that be on my mind as far as like, well, maybe she'll be back. Maybe she'll be back. Because what I find myself doing is delaying things like hiring somebody else or, it's generally around hiring, like just being like, maybe she'll be back and maybe I don't need to hire and train somebody new. Right. So that's been tough because it's like, she just was this really unique, amazing team member that made such a huge impact on the business, was instrumental in me being able to take my maternity leave. She ran our whole launch, even with all of this stuff happening in her personal life. And so without her on the team anymore, I have to really refigure out what business model can function without an integrator. Because integrators, as I'm sure you know, you can't just like hire a new one and plug them in very easily, right? Like that's not, it's not a position that's just like replaceable on an instant, 2-week notice kind of thing. So I feel like my first reaction was to just figure out what do I need to do to have this business function without her? And then eventually the goal will be to refill. I don't want to say that position because again, that might be a longer term outcome that I replace her, or maybe who knows, maybe she'll come back. But I do think that was something that again, unexpected, forced me into simplification mode again. And there's a lot of projects that I really want to be doing and I just don't have the bandwidth for right now. So it's kind of put me into this position where like I'm happy with how I'm handling it as far as like emotions and just like me being able to support her and be able to keep the business functioning without her. But I'm also very mindful of like how much slowing down the business had to experience because I just don't have somebody I can just pass stuff off to. And it didn't help that another one of my team members who had been with me for 3 years got pregnant and decided that she wanted to do the full-time mom thing, which is great. I completely understand, and not the best timing for the business to lose my 2 core team members within a month of each other. But essentially it just put me into this mode of being very scrappy, which again is kind of how I have become successful in my business. So I know I can figure stuff out. I can make money when I need to. Like, I know how to do things. I have enough skills that I can keep things going as a solopreneur, which is essentially how I'm operating now.
Yeah.
But all of that said, I can see that the things that I want to do in the business require some level of team,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not an integrator just yet. I just can't do it by myself. So I'm really looking at, and actually this will be what I bring up at our retreat that's coming up that I'll see you at.
Yeah.
Just
Hot
figuring
seat.
out, yeah, well, maybe, yeah, we'll see. Either way, at least I'll be talking to a lot of people about it. Just figuring out who I need to hire and what support I need to bring in so that I can move forward with some of the bigger projects that have been put on the back burner. So
Yeah.
my focus has been, the business needs money, so I got to keep making money in the business. But some of the bigger projects for creating some scalability are ones that I don't want to wait on because I can see that I'm sitting on a lot of untapped financial potential. It's just the number of moving parts for those is going to require more than just me. So
Yeah.
that was a long answer, but it's something that I think a lot of people, when they see successful business owners, they just assume everything's, it's because nothing goes wrong in their business and they have this
Right.
team and, everything's easy for them. And it's
Yep.
like, and I know, Jess, you share a lot of this stuff too, but it's like, there is no level of revenue you get to that suddenly things are just like easy. If anything, sometimes they get harder because
Yeah.
now you have other people
Yep.
to manage and,
Yep.
you're going to show up and you're going to do the work, but you literally can't depend on anyone
Yeah.
to be all in on the business. It's just not possible. They have their own life. So
Yeah. We talk about it all the time because so often clients, especially at the beginning phase, like they want more followers, they want more clients. They think that having a team is magically going to fix things. And it's like, no, you're just managing more people, more emotions, more family lives, more unexpected things that come up. It's more of that. And so, it is definitely, when they say new levels, new devils, that oftentimes is what they're referring to. And it's like, it's actually usually more complicated, more complex. And in my experience, the level or the role of leadership that you take on when you have a team and when you have hundreds or thousands of clients or audience members and, email lists and all of that and expectations and baselines is oftentimes very different than the initial role of like, I'm a trainer, I'm a dietitian, like I'm going to help people. This is fun. I'm a content creator and I like to put content out. It's a completely different role that you're stepping into, where it's like now your day-to-day might be like, you're on meetings and you're managing people and you're looking at metrics and data, and the gap gets really big oftentimes from where you started the initial sort of passion or purpose.
mm-hmm.
And so there's almost a fork in the road that happens that you sort of have to choose. Do I actually want to be a leader of a team and have all of these things? Or do I want to continue as maybe a solopreneur with a couple of people helping here and there, and I can just like stay in my zone of genius and I love coaching and I want to be a content creator or this, that, and the other. And it's not to say that as more of the leader type CEO, I'm not also doing those things, but the majority of my days don't look how they used to. And that was a fork in the road moment for me, I'm sure for you as well, where it's like, wait, this is going to require me to become a completely different version of myself, a different type of leader. And it's not just about me creating content, or to your point before, I also love creating things. Don't care if I finish them. We always joke like, $10,000 membership to get into my Canva, you get all access to everything, because the amount of unfinished courses that are in Canva, like I have so many workbooks that I've made for no reason and never done anything with. But it shifts, and it's like, well, that's not really what it looks like anymore for me. It's not to say that I don't do what I love and I don't have moments where I get to do those things, or I try to stay in my creative seat as much as possible. But at the end of the day, that's not really my job anymore. That's not really my role anymore. And so I think for me too, that's why I'll get triggered sometimes when people are like, it's a CEO day. And I'm like, you're a solopreneur. You don't even have a team. It's not like a company. And I'm not saying like you're not a CEO, but just understand what that actually means. Like, I'm not even the CEO of our company. I have no desire to be the CEO. I'm the CVO. I'm the visionary officer, right? Like I'm the founder, I'm the face, I'm the head coach, but like, I'm not a CEO. I manage some people on my team. So anyway, I digress. Going back to where we were, what was I going to ask you next? It was something about your day-to-day what is your day-to-day? Like, how has it shifted now? Are you sort of picking up the pieces and doing tasks that maybe you don't want to do or haven't done in a while, or are they just like not getting done and it's not a big deal?
Well, it's funny because earlier you were saying how like a lot of the day is now meetings and stuff. And that is something that was kind of an interesting reversal, I guess, was when my two main team members left. I'm like, I don't have meetings anymore. Like I literally have nobody
Do
to
you
meet
want to come
with.
on ours? Well, you're more than welcome.
Sure. Just throw them on my calendar. Could benefit from some like, reorientation to that. So it's funny because it's like it's a double-edged sword, right? The stuff that you're talking about, the creative stuff, the like develop an ebook, like create handouts and stuff. I'm in that process right now because I am working on building another program, which as I say it, I'm like, I love this program and I love where it's going. And it's also like, man, if I could just get like 6 months of not creating something new, I think I'd be in really good shape. So there's a lot of creation happening right now.
Is this the shift method?
It is the shift method.
I want to talk about that next.
Yeah. And the way I've looked at it, even though I know this can't just stay like this, I know this is not long term. One of the ways I've helped with my mindset around all of this is it's actually been really valuable to be back in the seat that most of my clients are in, where it's like the buck stops with you. You're literally doing everything and you have to make these decisions about what's going to move the business forward the most effectively and not get distracted by all of the stuff you think you should be doing or could be doing.
I
So
love that.
the whole scrappy, like, all right, I have a program that I want to sell. I have no lead magnet for it. I have like, these live brainstorm group coaching calls that I can pitch on a regular basis, but it's not like I have some like, proven automated webinar set up that I have a really consistent conversion rate and everything on. A lot of it's back in the like testing and experimentation phase to figure out like the messaging, the marketing, what do my clients need to hear? How do I overcome objections? What do I need to include in the program so that it is a no-brainer offer for people? And it's funny because my signature entry-level program, the Nutrition Business Accelerator, is basically like fully tested and proven. And right now it's just sitting on the shelf because again, that's the project that I want to really scale and need some support with as far as growing that is concerned. But doing it again and starting over gives me a lot of firsthand experience to then inform how I'm helping my clients. So, because I think a lot of times people like us that we're at a stage in business. I don't know how, I know you've been in this for at least probably a decade, right? Like getting close to a decade. Yeah. I think next year will be my 10-year anniversary starting my business. Like you get to a point where you almost forget what it's like to start over. And I know you started over your Instagram account. So that was probably
back in the
good
trenches.
start over. Yeah. Start over experience. This is an example of me starting over with program creation and sales. And then almost from like a meta perspective, using what I'm teaching to also then implement. So, we talk about things like minimum viable product and deciding what content is going to go into your curriculum and making sure you have like a continuity offer so that you're not just giving them the whole farm in your first offer. And all of that stuff I'm simultaneously teaching and delivering in new curriculum and also using that exact method to grow this program. So in some ways, like as much as it's like frustrating to be in the starting, I don't want to say starting over. You're never really starting over, but you're not just like making something that's working better. You're starting a new thing. As much as I'm like, oh, I can't wait until this is polished, like NBA is. I also can see that there's a ton of value in being in the trenches with it, with being able to speak to the challenges of not doing it the way that I'm teaching or doing it the way that I'm teaching being the best way, which is obviously
you're
why
also
I'm teaching.
Bringing like years of experience and knowledge and teaching the concept into now doing it from the quote unquote beginning again. Like where you are today doing it from the quote unquote beginning is very different than where you were when you did it 10 years ago at the beginning or 5 years ago.
And AI exists now. So I can like create content or even just like things like AI video editing tools and AI, like I can take a transcript and then turn it into a summary and then turn it into a handout. And it's like just the speed at which I can create things now is kind of amazing. I definitely had a baby in the right era of
Yeah.
human history as far as like being able to get stuff done. But all of that said, it's like, the more you do it, the more you get better at it and becomes just second nature. So this opportunity to practice it again, because the last time I started a new thing really was 2020. It gives me that opportunity to speak with more authority to the exact process. Cause it's like, I think when you get too far ahead, sometimes you get into that. Well, it's easy for you to say you have a, $500,000 ads budget to grow your business. Of course you're going to get leads, right? Kind of coming back to scratch and being like, I don't have a team.
Yep.
I don't have, this perfectly polished program. I'm literally creating it with you guys. Your questions are guiding the content, just helping them see that I'm doing the same work I'm asking them to do.
Yeah.
I think is actually super valuable. And it just makes what I'm teaching a lot more, I don't want to say authentic, but it's like, I'm not just teaching it because it's theory. It's like, oh, I'm actually doing it, and you guys can see what I'm doing as I'm doing it too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's my favorite thing when I'm putting something new together and I get to share it with my clients, because it's exactly that. It's like, it's not just do as I say, right? It's like, look and watch and experience it and feel it. And I think for the listeners right now, it's also really important to hear what we're saying. Like both of us, it's been a decade. I mean, I started in 2012, so 11 years, you're 10 years in. And we do go back to the beginning and we start pages again and we scrap ideas and we throw them out and we change how we're approaching the business, and we're constantly experimenting. And it's like, if you need the permission to do that right now, listen to us, because that's exactly what it is. And that's one of the only reasons that we're still here. It's because we're willing to adapt and we're willing to try new things and we're willing to go back to the foundations and the things that most people think are boring, or it's like, well, I picked my niche 7 years ago, so I don't have to worry about it again. It's like, that is the fastest way to plateau or plummet your business. Okay. I'm going to ask you a quick question. See if you can answer it with one word.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if we were to break the business journey up into 3 buckets, I know it's a lot bigger, but we sort of have the beginning phase, what you're kind of redoing right now, back from the ground up, where you're like starting again with a new product, right? Beginning phase. We've got the messy middle, where you're sort of like lather, rinse, repeat. You're just doing it again, figuring it out, making tweaks. And then we have the more advanced or elevated version, where you have been for the past couple of years. You're really scaling your team. You've kind of refined your offers at that point, and you're really looking to go wide instead of just high. So we've got like beginning, messy, middle, and then there's no end, but the more elevated version. Which one of the 3, if you had to pick, is your favorite place to be in the business?
Oh, that's a good question. there's the like, what should I say versus what I
want to know what you want to say.
Well, I really love, and I know I'm supposed to do a single word. I really love the energy of the start. Like, just when I get an idea that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do, I'm so pumped up about it. Like, it just like, the momentum is just amazing. So that is, I think, the most fun,
sexiest.
It's like, it's the most exciting. It's not the most profitable for sure. Like, that's definitely not where, like, I remember when I started my MBA program, the first round of that, we did 40K in sales for a beta. That's great, right? Like, that's not sad about that. We gifted a bunch of, and this is exactly what I teach my clients too. It's like, I gifted that program. Half the people in it were clients that I just gave it to. But then, like, our last launch, we did like 300K on that program. And it's one of these things where, like, the energy when I started it was like such pure, like, I'm
like
just
naive.
here to serve you guys. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just figure it out. And then, the last time we ran it, it's very like systematized, and, we have our team, we have our sales team, we have our coaches, and that's actually the business model that I want. But it's also like, that's where I start to get like, the 7-year itch. I don't know what it would be.
It's a little bored, a little monotonous.
7 launch itch. It's like, once you start to be like, okay, this is working now. Now I want to start something and get that like fresh energy. So I think I enjoy the first phase the most. Definitely do not enjoy the messy middle. Like, I either want it to be brand new and fun or working. I do not like all of the like figuring it out and fixing things piece. But that's also, as you said, like, you can't skip that part, and it has to happen.
Yeah. I feel like our mutual mentor probably, I feel like he loves the middle because he's such a like dial turner and like lever tweaker, you know, like he's like obsessed with the figuring out why it worked or didn't work. It's so interesting. I too naturally am drawn to the beginning phase because like I said before, I don't care if I finish a project, but when I think about my goal of my life, right? And we want to build the business around our life, not the life around the business. When I think of what I want my life to look like, and so many entrepreneurs, we at DBE call it holistic freedom. Holistic freedom being your financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, career freedom, creative freedom, freedom of like just all around. When we get into entrepreneurship, a lot of times we get into it because we want those things. We want to write our own rules. We don't want to have a boss. We don't leverage whatever we know. We don't want to have limits. And the true way to get there is the third phase, where it's the structure that creates the freedom. And you know what James always says to us is like, your business is not meant to entertain you, get a hobby. And it triggers me, it upsets me, because sometimes I'm like, the business is boring, I'm bored, I've been saying the same thing for 5 years, I've been running the same program for 5 years. And it's like, yes, but that well-oiled machine that you've been working on for so many years, and those systems and structure and team and automations are literally the exact reason why you can just take a random Tuesday off, or you can go on vacation with your husband and like not be at work for 10 weeks on maternity leave, and things are still running. Yes, they might not be growing, but they're running, right? And so it's so interesting that like we have these different phases. We are like at an hour, which is insane because we didn't even get to the shift method yet. But give me just a quick like elevator pitch of the concept behind the shift method, what people could expect when you're putting it out there. What is it? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, well, it is a work in progress. So this might change if you're listening to this in the future, you know, a year from now, maybe it'll be different. But something that I really was not only in my own business, but in my client's business, discovering through the process of launching and doing more of those like big live launch kind of experiences, is that most people need to try launching 5 to 10 times before it actually works for them. And there's a lot of failure involved, and there's a lot of financial failure as part of that too. And for a lot of people, that's really scary and possibly even not like safe for them to take that level of risk. I've had failed launches before. One of my launches of a program literally basically just made back my ad spend. I don't run that program anymore. I learned a lot from that experience, but most people don't want to have an experience where they spend 3 months planning a launch, you know, paying for ads, doing all the things that are like the launch strategy, and then not even knowing if it's going to sell. So this shift method that I'm developing is really designed to help minimize the risk of a bombed launch of a scalable program by, rather than adding a brand new offer that you now have to build all the marketing and messaging and do all of that like tweaking work that has to happen, being able to do that by shifting your currently successful one-on-one business into something that's scalable. So using not only the one-on-one service, but also the one-on-one sales methods that, as I'm sure you know, obviously, and a lot of your audience knows, one-on-one is the easiest type of program to deliver and sell. When you're selling one-on-one, you can literally customize the entire sales conversation around that individual. As soon as you start trying to go one-to-many in the delivery of the program and or the sales of the program, now you have to have that messaging nailed so that it works for anyone that comes across it, rather than being able to customize it. So I just found that there was this big gap for a lot of people between being able to sell and deliver one-on-one services and then trying to like just do a 180 and do this like one-to-many launch of a one-to-many program that they don't even know what they need to speak to sell it. They don't know like how to actually support a container of a group or anything like that. And it's just this huge, scary thing for a lot of people. And I know you and I have probably done it a lot and had either great experiences, bad experiences. We've taken on those risks. But what I realize is that a lot of entrepreneurs, they hold themselves back from doing that because they either don't want to, or they don't feel like it's safe to take that level of risk where they like shut down half their business to create this program that then they're not even sure is going to sell super well. So basically there's 3 different phases that I take my clients through. Phase 1 is shifting from the pure one-on-one into a hybrid or a group program model where you're actually using your one-on-one services to inform the creation of the scalable offer and to start delivering it in a way that does not cut down on your ability to serve people. And it also doesn't cause you to lose any revenue in the process. Phase 2 is scaling from one-on-one sales calls to one-to-many sales presentations. It doesn't mean we totally eliminate sales calls right off the bat, but we're able to get a lot of the work done in a one-to-many format and then just do the close in the one-on-one. So it's a much more efficient process. And then the scaling your audience piece is where you're starting to use more of a hybrid model for audience growth, where you're not just relying on, producing massive amounts of content and hoping people find you. We're looking at things like strategic partnerships, affiliate models, and paid advertising to round out the audience growth piece, so that you're not just like posting and hoping that people are going to find you. You're actually able to get in front of people in a much more direct and less time intensive way. So it's really looking at the 3 areas of the business: the way you serve clients, the way you sell, and the way you get in front of people, and creating scalability in each of those areas in a much more gentle way. That's why I call it the shift method. It's not just like, we're going to create a new program and a new launch model and, start spending money on ads when we don't even know if our organic audience converts, and just taking a lot of the risk out of that so that you can have a more safe container to experiment and to nail your messaging, nail your delivery, nail all the elements that you need to nail, so that when you do go and launch, everything is set up to work and it's not this huge experiment that, may or may not actually be profitable.
I love it. Serve, sell, and be seen. So good. So good. Well, I'm excited to see it all unfold. You ready for a couple rapid fires?
This is, whenever I do this on a podcast, I'm always
stressed?
like, it's just, I'm like, I don't know what it is. It's like, I want to have the right answer. So it just, my competitiveness comes out, and it's like, who am I competing against? Nobody.
Before we get into our last few rapid fire questions, just tell everyone where they can find you, how they can work with you, where they can learn more about the shift method, anything else cool that you have going on, or just to follow to see your cute, adorable little baby girl.
I mean, definitely Vera is the highlight of our Instagram page now. But if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is Laura Schoenfeld RD. RD stands for registered dietitian. That's my original area of expertise. And if you're interested in learning about how I can help you with the scalability shift process, if you DM me the word scale on Instagram, I have a very effective chatbot set up that will walk you through some of the questions to see if scaling is a process that you're ready for. And then it will invite you to book a strategy call with me if this is the right next step for you. And then if anyone is interested in learning a little bit more about how I teach and the kind of content I put out, I have a new lead magnet that I'm actually putting the finishing touches on as I'm talking to you. So it will be ready by the time this episode goes live. That is at lauraschoenfeld.com/promise. And that is where I take you through my 6 steps to identify and articulate your program promise, whether that's for a one-on-one or a group program. As many of you know, your program promise is a non-negotiable first step for creating and selling your program. And I want to make sure that everyone that's doing that process knows how to pick a program promise that's going to be something that actually sells. So that's what that lesson is all about.
I love it. I'm definitely going to go download it, and we'll drop it in the show notes, lauraschoenfeld.com/promise. We'll put that in the show notes so you can grab that for free. All right. You ready?
Hit me.
And these are rapid fire. So if you were to do a TED Talk and be known for one thing, what would be the thing that you would speak about?
How to create a business that allows you to nourish yourself.
Guilty pleasure, can't be food or Netflix.
This is going to sound so gross. Smelling my baby's laundry. I'm telling you, the smell is like nothing you've ever smelled before. It's really weird.
Oh man. What's something that you wish people asked you more?
How can I help?
Oh, I love that. If I were to cut you a check tomorrow for $50,000 that you had to use in or on your business, you could split it up or use it in one lump sum. What would you use it on?
Hire a sales team.
Love it. And our final question that we ask everybody, we both know that we are always evolving and growing, and our businesses are a reflection of that evolution. So what is your next personal or business evolution?
My next business evolution is to turn my signature program into a program that is ran and sold by coaches and not me.
Cool. I love that.
Creating that actual phase 3 business model.
Yeah. I'm so excited to jam out in like 11 days in person in Seattle, where we get to give, real live feedback, hugs, hang out by the campfire. I don't know if there'll be a big campfire, but there will be a boat. So
There's
we can hang out on the boat.
So boat parties are always fun. So.
Boat parties are always fun. Well, Laura, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming on. Such a fun conversation. And I just appreciate how real and raw you are about everything. I know certainly when the day comes that I transition into motherhood, I will be knocking on your door, asking for advice, because you are seemingly doing it effortlessly. So as always, friends, if you love this episode, take a screenshot, share it out on social media, tag Laura at Laura Schoenfeld RD, tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. Let Laura know what some of your biggest takeaways were, your aha moments. It's the best gift that we can give back to Laura for giving us her time so beautifully. And as always, friends, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.